Boy, that didn't like soft fade out like I thought it was going to.
No, it doesn't. It usually fades a little bit softer than that.
Of course, it lagged right when we turned it on, so there is that. But I guess we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm Jeff Fuller from Fuller Embroidery Works, and we've got Mr. Justin Armenta from JA Digitizing Studios with this cool little hat tree in the background. I'm a fan of the lighting. Mine's, well, don't look back there. But today we're going to be talking about, I think, what's the title? Exploring new software, training a new digitizer. There's titles for it. I forget what we titled.
Not training a new digitizer.
Training an old digitizer.
Training an old dog new tricks.
Old dog new tricks. Oh, that would have been a great title. We'll keep that up next time. But it's gonna be really easy for me to check in the comments because we have two, and they're both from YouTube. So we've got Letty from Walker Woods Creation saying hello, and we have Kingsbury's Craft with hand pink waving. I'll wave back. Just so you guys know, I'm not sure. The stream was acting a little bit weird when we started it up today. So we only see comments on YouTube. So if you are watching this on Facebook and your comments aren't coming through, then maybe hop on over to our YouTube stream and you guys can pick it up there and we'll go ahead and go from there. But see, we have TMG Custom Designs checking in as well. All right, so Justin installed Pulse on his computer, fired it up, and we're going to talk a little bit. We've explored the software a little bit before, and me and Justin have talked about this kind of in the past, and it's I'm going to go through some of the settings that I use. We're going to start out with that. Some of the settings that I use when I use Pulse that's made the learning curve easier. That's the way I'm going to phrase that.
That even established digitizers, or if you're an embroiderer and you use software, the biggest thing I think is the learning curve, because you get to a certain efficiency, a certain speed when you've been doing it for so long. But as soon as you start throwing a new software at you, it slows you down quite a bit. So even if you have the technical knowledge or the theory behind digitizing, now you got to figure out how the software is going to take you to what you want to do. So that's where we're kind of at right now. Jeff's had a little bit more experience with it. I've upgraded some equipment here, so I've just newly installed the new Pulse here. So we're going to get going and educate myself. Jeff's going to educate me.
We're going to let Justin educate himself because Jeff doesn't know what he's doing. No, we'll go from there. But, Justin's already been through this once before. So when we first met Justin, I want to say you were just coming off of using Wings XP, and now
Wings, yeah.
Yep, Wings.
I was moving into Wilcom, and luckily I had used Wilcom in the past at another embroidery house, so I was familiar with it. Just the way it was set up and stuff. I hadn't really digitized in it, so kind of the point and counterpoint and the ways of plotting different points was a little bit different than Wings, but I was able to catch on a little bit faster since I was familiar.
Gotcha. Well, we're going to make you catch on a little bit faster here with Pulse today. So I'm going to add it to stream, and we'll go ahead and make it big because nobody needs to look at my ugly face. So the first thing that you'll notice, Justin will notice, you guys won't notice there in the popcorn stands, but my layout is quite a bit different from probably what you have on your screen.
Yes, it is.
Generally, Pulse has fly-out menus that come here across the side. And when I very first started using Pulse, I would use those fly-out menus. And for those of you guys that don't know, a fly-out menu has a little thing that you click down next to it, and it has options under it. So all the, like the select tools were all under one fly-out menu. The, editing tools were all under another. And I really struggled with it. And it wasn't until I went into general settings, and we'll go through. I'm just making sure it's blinking on my screen. Making sure it's not blinking where you guys can see it. If it is blinking, let us know in the comments because it's blinking on my screen. But from here, I went under to environment display, and there's a little checkbox right there that says use flyout menus on the bottom right. And I unchecked that so that I wouldn't see those flyout menus anymore. I do have, show crosshair cursors, draw crosshair cursors, and show contents when dragging. I left all checked.
I'm going to have you slow down a second, okay?
Dustin's catching up.
I can't even find settings.
So up here on the top, there's tools.
Mm-hmm.
And then under tools, there's user settings. And you can
user settings.
Yep. And you can just double click on it.
And where was that?
Under environment and then display.
Okay. And what do I want to check off?
So use fly out toolbars down on the bottom right.
Okay.
And you'll uncheck that, and that'll get rid of that. And it'll throw all of your icons up here, so you'll be able to see what all of your options are. And I that's where I found some stuff that I was like, oh, I didn't even know I could do that. So
gotcha.
That was one that I set up. You can go down through. I don't really mess with the displays, shortcuts. So in 2010, they changed the keyboard shortcuts. So if you use this pre-2010, you could actually apply the old style shortcuts. Man, that took me a really long time to come up with. Then we'll go ahead and, there are a few that I'll get into here too. Let's go into text, Melco. You don't really need to do much about that. But the big one that I get under here is under stitch generation. So when you use Willcom, anytime you edit a node, anytime you edit anything, the stitches automatically regenerate. And in Pulse, they actually have that to where it turned off by default. And you have to hit the G key or Shift G to generate your stitches. And you might still have to do that every now and again. But I went ahead and checked generate stitches after node edit, generate stitches after editing envelope, after editing beads, and after editing slice lines. And so that makes it so that anytime you edit an object, it's going to automatically generate stitches, and it'll just act a lot more that like you're used to. The stitch exceptions. So it'll highlight stitches that are shorter than 2.2 and highlight ones that are longer than 12. I don't really mess with that. My units, I do all in metric because I am used to that. You are too, so you might want to go under units and make sure that you've got that set how you want it to.
Yes, I do.
I've set under thread charts, I've set my thread charts to polyneon because I use Madeira's polyneon. File associations, I don't really keep all those checked. We can go up to, I don't mess with those either. And then machines, depending on your machine that you have. Those are pretty much all that I do. Under general, it has save images and PXF files. So that's if you want to save your artwork in your native file versus referencing it. And basically that'll just make you have a larger file size if you have art in there. So I don't really mess with that either. And then there was one more that I wanted to get you. And it's going to take me a little bit. Digitizing tool. No. Not under drawing. Nope. Units. Well, we'll find it eventually. I want to say right click is enabled by default. So that's the settings that I use. And now if you close out your software, Justin, and you restart it, you're going to be able to, because it should prompt you after you save those to restart your software.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. See, I remember some things.
So I get that reopened here. All right.
You got it?
It's opening up again. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing I really like about this software is how quick it opens.
It does open rather fast, doesn't it?
It does, and I enjoy that it does that. Let me pull that over here. And if you're up and ready to go, we can go ahead and talk about a little bit more about this. And I have something up that you don't. So I'm going to go to Customize Tools, which is right underneath User Settings. And I'll go into Toolbars and just make sure that I've got just about everything selected. I don't check the menu bar because I'm not huge on having that there because it's already up there at the top. And then under Options, I make sure that I have Show Screen Tips on Toolbars and Show Keyboard Shortcuts in Screen Tips.
Okay.
And then we can go ahead and close that out there. And so now you should be looking at something really similar to what I'm looking at.
Gotcha. What was the toolbar that you said you usually don't have on?
The menu bar.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah,
and
it looks...
this is actually in here. When you go under the keyboard tab, that's where you can set your keyboard shortcuts. So you can look at the different options under like File, Edit, Segment, and you can actually set your keyboard shortcuts to whatever you want them to be, and you do that here under this menu.
Oh, that's a nice feature.
Yep. So I've got this art in here, and I've got it sized.
So let's take this from the beginning. Where are we importing the art?
All right, so you have it downloaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
So up here, we have load image. So we could load vector design if we wanted to. That's one of those options. The other one is load image. And so we're just going to go ahead and load the image. And then you're going to select the artwork and hit open. And it should import it to your default workspace. I think this might be more interesting if they'd be looking at your screen.
No.
So next up, you can go under image up here on the top ribbon. And we have different options. We can show it. So if we just unclick that, it'll disappear. We've got lighten, and we've got backdrop select. So you want to do the backdrop select so that you can actually select the art and move it.
Okay.
Once you have backdrop select, once you have that selected and you have your art selected, you can right click on it and you can actually go down here to reference tool. And that will put a rectangle around the box. And you have this little reference point windows here. So now what you can do is you can move the four corners to the four corners of the artwork. And that just did not do what I wanted it to do.
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right. And now you can enter in the size that you want it to be.
Okay. What size are we going?
I went with 2 1/4 inches.
Tall?
Yep.
Nice.
And that would be the height that I went with. So I've got that there. And next, 2, 3, and then I can enter in the millimeters there. And that'll resize the object based off of the box size. It's fair to say that if you guys are setting this up for the first time, sometimes, especially when I went to my new monitor, my reference scale was way off. So I actually had to go up here to calibrate screen. And I had to calibrate my screen, which is kind of fun because you take a ruler, a physical ruler, and you hold it against the screen and you measure the size of this box. And then you put in your measurements there. And that will change the scale to match your monitor so that when you're looking at it, it looks like it's supposed to.
Oh, when you're looking at it 1:1.
Yep. So that it's actually the correct size when you're looking at it 1:1. And in my case, this monitor sat a little bit wider than it was taller. And so it actually had to pull in the line so that it came out like a rectangle. So once you're done with your scaling, you can just grab the select tool and it will pretty much just lock your art to the background. You're not able to select it unless if you go into the image and you do the background select. So now we'd be looking at digitizing the text. Of course, when we do text, we always need to compensate for the push and the pull of things. Identity thread says one hand on the key. One of the really handy keyboard shortcuts I added was drag anchor path with Alt N. Since keyboard shortcuts for Node is N, I figured dragging the path with Alt N made sense. So it's really nice to be able to actually set your keyboard shortcuts to something different.
Yeah. The Adobe products have that in Illustrator and whatnot, so that's always nice to have.
Yep, you get used to it and it just makes it easier. But
especially if you are coming from one software to the other. So if I wanted to take all the Wilcom ones that I'm used to and bring those into those, that would be a little bit quicker.
I remember when you first started using Wilcom, you were cursing a lot because your keyboard shortcuts you were used to were wings.
Well, not only left and right click in Wilcom are straight in curve points when right click ended your shape in wings. So I kept on right clicking thinking I was going to end the shape and it wasn't. So yeah.
Yep. And this can actually be either way. So currently I have it set up so that it's right click when I enter in an object because it's easier for me. But we'll go ahead. We can set up our push compensation on this text and we can get it digitized. I am going to measure the object, which is Control M. And I'm just going to make sure, I'm at 2.7 millimeters roughly and 4 millimeters. So I know that I'll be okay with that. So I'll go ahead and select that. And then to do my push compensation, I'm actually going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to make sure that it's plenty wide. And select it. And now I've got my height there, so I can actually set the value that I want my push to be. And then I can just drop this object right there on the baseline. And I'll scroll in a little bit to bring it down just a little bit more. And we'll nudge it just a hair. There. So now I've got my push compensation. And you can see that I didn't add my push compensation on the top. And that's because there's no open columns on the top. So I don't really have to worry about that. I am going to fly out my sequence view, and I'm going to pin it down so that I have that up all the time so I can see the sequence of my objects. And that'll actually allow me that I can go right here underneath the little eyeball where I can hide it, and I can lock it. So now I'm not going to have to worry about accidentally selecting it and moving it. And that should bring us to digitizing.
I'm with you.
All right. So we have our options up here. We're going to do a satin stitch. And we have our enhanced column, which is point counterpoint. We have our satin path, which is you basically draw the outside bounding box with the satin path. And then you assign stitch angles to it. He's with me so far. Maybe. So I'm going to go ahead.
You just go to the contour of it.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with the path tool so that you can see that. And then I'll do a letter with the other input. Now, I do like that you can actually see I'm going to call them Bezier. Did I get that right?
Yep.
The Bezier handles as you digitize. And I'm just doing right clicks along the base here. And I'm going to come to right about there. And I will drop a node I'm going to drop it just a little bit short. And I'm going to come back up to the inside. And I could do this a couple of different ways. But this way I think is going to be the easiest for right now. And I'll go ahead and drop that there. And when I get done doing the object, if I hit the O key, it's going to actually close the object. So if you treated this like a vector outline, you would be completely doing the whole vector outline. Where if I did it like point counterpoint, I wouldn't be able to close that. So if I convert this to artwork, I'm going to have a closed shape. He's with me so far.
Yes, I'm following along.
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and draw my stitch angle lines here. And we'll bring those there and there. and there, and right there. And now I can hit the enter key. And now I have my object done. And I can go ahead and digitize the next object. Now, shift is the key that locks you to an axis. Not going to tell how embarrassingly long it took me to figure that out.
And I was hitting control to lock to an axis, and it was giving me a curve node every time I try to do that.
Yeah, it's not a fan. And now I'm just going to select the object, and I can move my start and my stop points to where I want them. And something I think is really cool is if I hold down control and I select both objects, I can actually move the start and stop points for both objects at the same time.
Nice.
Which is something that's just a little bit different. If I wanted to have this letter run more like a digitized letter with the kind of branching pathing, I can actually go up here to the shape button on the top, and I can combine that, and now it's going to treat those two segments like one segment.
Okay, so when similar to branching in WooCom, so what that's going to do is, if correct me if I'm wrong in Pulse, it'll actually do all of the underlay first of the whole object.
Yeah, so if I grab the playback tool, I mean, it would probably help if I actually added underlay to it. So we'll go ahead and add a contour and a parallel underlay so that now we can see that. But if I grab that tool, you can see how it's going to do all of the underlay for everything, and then it'll come back and do the stitching. It will also, if I don't have my starting point, if I don't set my start and end points, it will basically branch them together. It'll put them together in the most efficient way that the software can calculate how. So that's the satin path input. Now like I said, I'm going to use the enhanced column input, which is going to be the point counterpoint. So I'll go ahead and just kind of work my way around the C.
Quick question: when you have it selected, where was that menu that you went and you changed the underlay quickly?
It's actually right up at the top of your screen on a toolbar.
Oh, I was looking at the properties window on the right.
Yep. So it not only does it have it here on the properties window on the right, it has it up here on the top. So I can actually set my beginning lock stitch to basic. I can set my end lock stitch to line, and I can set my command to trim all right up here on the top, as well as set my underlays. And I can give it my pull compensation there if I wanted to at a point 5 roughly. And I can do all that up at the top line.
Gotcha.
And not hit any buttons. So I'm going to grab my select tool. I'll grab this R here, and I didn't give it an end command, so I'll give it a trim, and I'll give it an end lock stitch and a beginning lock stitch, and I'm just going to leave everything else the way it is. And that put that trim in there, which I don't know if you can see it on screen. Let me turn off 3D view. You can see that it put a little pair of scissors there.
Mm-hmm.
So that now I know that there's a trim there. If we changed colors, instead of a little piece of scissors, it would have a C, like a big
for a color change.
Bold C, yep, for a color change. So
let me ask you something. So like I set all my settings that I want on one element, like my first part of the R, my underlay, my pull comp, whatever it may be. Like WooCom, is there a copy settings so you can paste those settings onto other elements that you select?
I'm not going to say no, but I'm going to say I don't know. Okay. It's not something that I've found yet. So generally, I've found myself planning out designs more when I do them in Pulse. I spend a little bit more time thinking about it. And so I tend to set all of those properties at the beginning, or I'll select all of them and set it at the end. Gotcha. Okay. It just depends on how many objects. So we use the enhanced column and we use the satin path. Now I'm going to show you where utilizing maybe some of the art tools would be helpful. So I'll grab the ellipse tool. That's going to be the best way I'm going to be able to say that. And I'm just going to kind of draw a circle here in the beginning, and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to actually just make it fit in this box here. And I'll get there. I promise I'll get there.
I'm there.
I knew you would be. I'll just set that one and getting there. Unlock. That was about what, 7 millimeters, give or take. I think that's a decent amount. So now I'll go ahead and grab the ellipse tool again, and I'm just going to draw the O shape again, and I'll select it and make it larger till it fits. I might have went a little too big. Don't tell anybody. Bring it down. And I'm not going to say that this is really bad artwork, Justin, but this is pretty bad artwork. I'm going to fire my artist. For those of you that don't know, I'm the artist. So now I'm going to actually select both of them.
Okay.
And I'm going to use the shape tool.
Okay.
And I'm going to combine the two. So now that I've combined the two, I'm going to right click and I'm going to convert segment 2, and I'm going to convert it to a satin path. And now all I have to do is draw stitch angles going around the object.
That's pretty snazzy.
And I'm set up. So that's just another way that you can enter in the different command types.
So basic shapes are easily just kind of grab shapes, make your letter, whatever it may be, and just convert to stitches then.
Yep. So you can do that with multiple shapes. So just in the underlays. Oh, here you go. Just in the underlay settings in the property section is under the 2 stacked brown rectangles icon.
I found that as we were talking. Yes, thank you.
That one. There you go. And then your underlay is going to be there. And then here is going to be your pull compensation. That's for if it's a steel, and this is for if it's a satin. You've got your cornering. Another thing that you can do if you really want to drill down into the object is if you double click on it, it'll pop up this window here where you can actually look at and go more in depth into all of the different settings.
So it kind of just consolidates it all into one window with a menu on the side.
Yep. So you can go, okay, well, what's my density profile? What's my underlay? And you can actually look at your different underlays, and you can resequence the underlays if you want, so you can have them go in any order that you want to. If you get into your commands, you're going to have your general commands, which is going to be your start and your stop, your trim. There are pressure foot settings as well as RPM settings. So this is, if you run a Tajima, this is where you would set those things like, I want it to slow down here. I want it to speed up.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. So then you've got your compensation for pull and for push. So you can actually set a value in your push to compensate for it there. Your connector, like your Smart Connect. So this is when it exports the file, it'll actually, you can tell it to trim at 3 millimeters. So if it's more than 3 millimeters apart, you want it to trim. And then you can tell it that you want it to lock stitch, and you can say sometimes around trims, color changes, and around stops. So those are all settings that you can change in there.
So the push compensation. So technically, if that works correctly, we wouldn't have had to plot the box for the push compensation.
Right.
Nice.
But I can tell you, as somebody who uses push compensation, or I've never had it in software to where I could just type in a value. I always go with the box and I manually adjust for my push.
Same here. Wings had the same thing. They had a push compensation, and because push compensation really depends on how the element is and how big your lettering is and whatnot, and how it's reacting to the environment that it's going on. It's not an exact science. So
no. It is, though, if you were just doing stock text, like keyboard font stock text, that's where I would use the push compensation, because I'm not necessarily going to go in there and edit every object and make sure that it's going to line up properly. I'm just going to set the push compensation at
Right.
whatever value I feel is necessary for the height of the text, because that changes based off of your height of your object and the width of your stitches. So that I would just go through and I would make that change based off of that. But let's go ahead and we'll do this R again, and we can do it again either way. If we did it like with the pen tool, we can do it just the same way as we did the satin path. I'm going to come up and draw my shape. And if I really wanted to, I could actually come here and come down to there and across and up to there and then down. And I could close my shape right there. And then I could do the same thing here. And we'll just kind of move around here. And we'll close that shape. So now I have two closed shapes. I can go in and I can do the, let me get my select tool so that I have the object. Then I can add them together. And then I can convert that segment to a satin path. And now you can see that I've got a lot of weirdness. Can I just put it that way? I've got a lot of weirdness going on, Justin.
Or you could figure out how to duplicate and hold down shift and constrain it and move it over. The first star that
no, I could. I'm just doing it. I know what you're talking about. I
know.
I could do it that way, or I could go in and I could show you the virtual slice tool.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Please
so now
do.
I can come over here to where these two would intersect, and I can draw a slice line. And I can come over here where these two intersect, and I can draw a slice line. So now I've got my two slice lines that I can go in and I can add the angle lines.
Now that's
and
that.
Now it's going to treat that.
Is that pink knife tool in the center there?
Okay. It is this one. So it's not actually a knife, because a knife would be cutting the object. It's a virtual slice.
Gotcha. Okay.
So just using that to go in and change those settings. And I'm going to actually bring this down just a hair. And then you can edit these virtual slice lines more like they are. I grabbed the wrong one. Like kind of like their angle lines in the way that you can edit them. And then I think they all just disappeared on me. That's okay. I can just go back and add them again. And we'll add a virtual slice there. And then I'm going to bring this just a little bit lower, and I'm going to put it there. And hit enter.
I was trying the whole right click, drag and drop, like in Wacom, to see if it would copy, and it didn't work.
Yep. I could see that. I think I messed up my object somehow. Let's go turn this off here. Because right now I only have one angle line showing, and I've got my angle line tool. And if I go in and start adding angle lines, it should be giving me all of the options. Yeah, something's not right. My slices aren't where they need to be. And so rather than do that, I'll just show you the duplicate object. So if I wanted to duplicate this object, I would actually come up here and I would do the duplicate or Control D. So I wouldn't grab and slide it. I would just click on that, and I can come and set it right where I want it to be. And I can click and hit enter. And so this is really nice. Like if I had, let's say we're doing the word real with two E's in it, I could just click and click and click. And then hit enter, and it would put the 3 there. So virtual slices control U, and knife is just C. Okay, and if you hover over, it would actually show you virtual slices just U, slices C. So you can hover over, and they'll tell you what they are. So that's a wave. Yep. He's with me so far, I think.
Yeah, I'm just kind of exploring how to change the angles and whatnot.
So for this object, I'm going to do a run stitch, and I just selected the run right there. I'll come up.
Is it just me, or is it super hard to see the nodes?
Sometimes it's hard to see the nodes. And I'll grab that tool. What is it? Hold on. Enhanced column. I'm going to get the names of all these one day. I'll just draw my 4 points. And hit enter. And now I have that object goes there. That run stitch goes there. And I'll just click to do a run stitch. And that object ends there.
So was the enhance column just point counterpoint?
Yes.
Okay, so
if I do, yep. Column A, B, and C. They're just called something different, but same kind of input method. So I'll go ahead and go here. And again, I'm using Shift. This is one of the things that gets me when I switch back and forth between different softwares, is the key to constrain them to an axis is different in different software.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll come right there. So I could have just moved my start and my stop point, but I wanted to use a run stitch. Justin won't fire me.
No.
Okay, so now we're sitting at the upper part of the R, which if we measure our columns here with Control M for measure, we can look and see that those are 0.5 millimeter, roughly 0.7 maybe. I mean, definitely not the 1 millimeter that we would want, because that comes out significantly further. So we can decide how we want to digitize this. Justin, how do you want me to digitize the drop shadow?
Let's, whatever column C tool you have, let's just set it to a column width and see how much gap that it leaves you.
Okay, so that's going to be a steel.
A steel?
Yep. And it's right next to the satin path or F7 on your keyboard.
And I see the width up on top in the center there.
Yep. So I'm going to go to a 3 millimeter width. Let's see what that does. And then it would just be drawing the straight points. Although they're not that straight because...
Are you doing the white?
Yeah. How you want me to do the white?
No, I was doing the outline of the black. Use the steel of that. Yeah.
We can get on that same page. I'm game for that.
All right.
So if I did that, I would set the steel properties again. I'd be more like 1 millimeter, and I'm going to add 0.17, 0.18 pole comp. And then it really comes down to pathing. So I'm going to want to run this piece first. And I can come here and down to the point, up there, and up right there, and hit enter. And of course, I'm going to have to move my start and my stop points. That's okay. I'll toggle over to a run stitch. And I'll go right there. Back to a steel. There. Jump to a run. And I think I'm going to ignore that little tiny bit right there.
Yeah.
From there, back to a steel.
I keep hitting the space bar to end my shapes, and that's not working.
No, it would not. We'll go ahead and click that there. And then, I mean, I guess I probably shouldn't have ran through the object. Whoops.
Why?
I don't know. We'll throw some stitches over the top of it and then outline it. That sounds like what we would do. Justin's lost in his own little world over there.
I'm just trying to catch up with you.
You're not that far behind, are you?
I was trying to see hotkeys on my mouse and stuff. They were working for enter and all that.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
So really just to do this shape, I'm going to use the artwork tool, and I'm just going to combine the two pieces. So I'll do the interior piece. I'll come up and do this piece. The inside of the R, I guess.
Oh, so that's just a freehand drawing tool then?
Yeah, the pen.
Okay.
I mean, it's still point counter, or not point counterpoint, but it's still point.
You're still plotting the points. It's not a square or a circle. It's not
Yep.
limiting to those shapes.
Right. So now I'm going to go to I'm just going to convert it to a complex fill, and I'm going to set my stitch angle. That looks good. We'll go right about.
Quick question. Is there a quick way of toggling back and forth between the two tools that you've been using last?
I just use the keyboard shortcuts.
The shortcuts, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's another thing. Wacom, I believe it's spacebar that allows you to jump between like a run stitch and a steel if you're going back and forth using those two different stitches.
Yeah, I just work with the keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to select this object, and now I'm just going to do a little bit of pathing here. That object should line up. Everything else should line up if I remember right. This one might not. Nope, it does not. So I'll just move that there. And then we're going to end up there. So I will go ahead and I've got my start point there. And I'll put my end point down here. That looks good to me. And now I'm just going to use the, I wonder.
Now, when you're going through elements, again, referencing my Wacom brain, you can tab through elements usually. Is there a movement to the next element that you have? Do you know?
Yes. It's going to be control left arrow, right arrow.
Gotcha.
But let me show you how I'm going to do the border here. So I go ahead and select this object. I'm just going to copy and paste it on top of itself. And then I'm going to convert it to artwork, art segment, and then I'm going to break it apart. And so now I have my two pieces over here. And I'm just going to move that up so that these two pieces will run last. And I can take that now and I can convert it to a steel. And so now I have my steel. And let me just check here. Yep, 0.17. So it has all my values. It should, because I set them at the beginning. So it still has all of my values there, and I can do the same thing with this inner object. I can convert segment to and a steel stitch there as well. This object, I'm going to make sure that it ends where I want it to, and that I'm going to put a lock stitch. I'm going to put a trim and a lock on there so that it doesn't go into my next segment. And then the rest of this should all be applied when the trims and lock stitches should all be applied when I export the file out, because it'll go based off of the stitch processing segment. Processing segments, and it'll all put it out like that. So I'm going to grab this upper object up here, and I'm going to turn it yellow, and you'll see how that trim right there went from a trim to a big C. So if I turn it back to red, you'll notice that that goes to a trim.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then for some strange reason, we have a trim right here. So That's going to be my ending object there. That's my starting object there. That one goes up there. And it looks like the trim is right here, so it's actually put in the stop command, so I can just turn that off. No command and none. And so now I've gotten rid of that trim. And now it really just comes down to, you know, what settings do you want? I want, as far as I've got all those selected. So if I go here to my underlay, it doesn't like that I have runs selected.
Oh, you have to have all like stitch types.
Yep. So let me just get in here and grab these runs out. And now I can go in here and I can set my pull comp to absolute if I want to do like a 0.18, 0.2, and I can check and hit all the underlay in one shot.
So is there a select by stitch type?
Yes.
There is?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still working with that tool. And I can't remember where it is at the moment, but there is
that's fine.
a select by stitch. I forget what it's called. It's not called select by stitch type though. It's something else. Gotcha. And yeah, any other questions, Justin? You get the gist of it?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll and pulse.
Makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense now, yes. I haven't had time to really play with it, but it's in situations like this, it's hard, especially that's kind of what I do day in and day out. I got to get my work done as well. So yeah, kind of jumping into a software that right now I wouldn't feel comfortable doing a real difficult design for a customer. But it would be nice to have the capabilities to offer a pay-accept file, which is the native Pulse file, to a customer if they like to, or if they want it, and just kind of expand my horizon when it comes to software and have 18 of them like Jeff does.
I tell you, it's some days your brain just feels like jello when you're trying to switch between them. But, you know, hopefully this gives you enough of a enough that when you go and you need to like edit a design or something like that, you can actually get in there and make an edit, change something, you know, where all those selections are. And I can honestly tell you that, and let me pull up my screen here, that having all of these buttons here at the top helps me a ton, because now I wasn't looking for stuff in fly out menus or sub menus.
Right.
They're all kind of up here. And, you know, I found their duplicate, their mirror, they call reflect. So when I was very first trying to mirror an object, I was really spending a lot of time in the user manual looking up how to mirror, and they don't call it mirror.
Yeah, I mean, you have the layout itself. You have the mouse clicks, what they do. You have your hotkeys. You have your terms, the way things are called. So all these different things that, you know, getting to the same end as you would do in any software, it may be called 6 different things. It may be, you know, one software you do it in 3 clicks, one you do it in 5 clicks, whatever it may be. Yeah. So,
and some have different options like the virtual slice and the push compensation. And, you know, I can honestly tell you that one of the things that really impressed me with Pulse is that how clean it comes out. My text tends to come out a lot cleaner. Mm-hmm. And I really have no reason why, because I can use the same settings in 2 different softwares with the same artwork, the same objects, and it seems to come out a lot cleaner in Pulse.
I saw it was like night and day on some stuff from Wings to Wilcom. I started noticing that, yeah. So, and once I got past that learning curve, you know, sometimes when I'm in that zone, it's you see my mouse flying everywhere on the screen and hotkeys going, and yeah.
And see, I've got a macro keyboard, which I know you do too. And to my macro keyboard, I've got all of the keyboard shortcuts mapped to the same keys. So I can select the profile in the keyboard, in the macro keyboard, and I can select it. I'm digitizing in DG, and then my run stitch is all button number 1. My satin is number 2. My classic satin.
It's funny you say that. You do that even when you're digitizing on screen and not on your tablet.
Mm-hmm.
I got the micro keyboard just for my tablet, but I probably should just move it over here to my left and use that always in that way, because there's times where I may not be on my tablet for a couple days and then I go to it and I'm trying to remember the hotkeys again.
Yep, I move it from over here to over here, and I'll set it down, and I'll use it, because I can program, for instance, the same button in every software does a run stitch in every software. So it's really a lot easier for me to use something that I can program that way versus trying to learn and remap keyboard shortcuts.
That's
the exception is when I do a Facebook Live, I don't use it. Because I try to remember the keyboard shortcuts, because it doesn't help anybody a lot if I'm like, well, if I push number 3 on my macro pad, it does this, versus it's F1, F2, F3 on your keyboard. So I really try not to use it when I am doing a Facebook Live, but when I'm actually digitizing, I use my macro keyboard for dang near everything. It speeds up a lot when I use it on my tablet, as well as when I set it down here and just am digitizing regular. And it helps me not have to remember as many keyboard shortcuts.
Nice. That's a great idea. I think I'm going to adopt that idea.
So Nikki asks, will you offer a cheat sheet for those who are learning Pulse? That is something I'm working on, and I actually have a couple. I've got revisions. I'm working on revisions, but I've got a couple. And I'm finding the keyboard shortcuts that I use the most, and I'm putting those on there. But we will have something out there. I'm hoping maybe later next month, because I just looked at the date on the calendar today. I'm like, nope, that ain't happening.
Later next month.
Any questions while you still got me on here, Justin?
No, I think this is a good start. Be a little test to see, maybe play with it a little bit more between now and next week, and maybe we can see if we can find a digitizing 911 or something like that, and try to do that in Pulse and see where I'm at with that.
Give it a shot. I'm there for it.
Awesome.
All right. Mike says need some shortcut command cross-reference flowcharts. Yep, I have one of those too, and it's very big. Yeah, it's about the size of my monitor, and I actually got it laminated, and I wish I knew where I put it so I could pull it up. But for a little while I had that because it was easier to look at it, because it actually had the keyboard shortcut and a picture of the icon with the name of what it was. So that really helped me out a lot too. But I guess if you don't have any other questions, Justin, and we don't see too many more things in there, we'll go ahead and go into announcements. Coming up this July, we've got Applique Getaway. I'm going to be going to Applique Getaway down in Fort Worth, Texas. It's going to be their 10th anniversary, so I'm really excited for that. I think they're going to do it up big. And
oh, nice.
I'll be teaching, I think I'm doing 3 classes right now.
Good to hear.
And then we also have our Embroidery Nerd shirts that we're running right now. The website is shirt.theembroiderynerd.com. And we'll be selling the shirt that I'm not wearing, and the one that Justin's not wearing. We'll be selling the shirts that we did up. What was it? 3 lives ago that we digitized that. So we'll be doing those shirts. They'll be printed
and sweatshirts.
And sweatshirts. They will be printed and fulfilled by Justin's company, Aztec Embroidery. I got it.
Yes.
And that will be ending here soon. Now, I want you guys to know, I don't want to sound like a telemarketer, but I'm totally going to sound like a telemarketer right now. But we only do shirt runs once a year. So this is your one shot this year to get an Embroidery Nerd t-shirt. If you want one, this is pretty much it until next year around the same time. We have not done the same design yet. So I could tell you, if you were standing in front of me in an Embroidery Nerd shirt, I could tell you what year we released that shirt. Because we do not use the same design over again. So we are able to tell, looking at that, and go, okay, well, you're wearing last year's shirt or the year before. So
you want to collect them all. You got to get one every year. So
yep, it's
add
like
it to your collection.
You got to collect them all. So if you guys do want an Embroidery Nerd t-shirt, this is your one shot this year to get that. And those are, again, at shirt.theembroiderynerd.com. Did I cover all the announcements, Justin?
I think so.
All right. Well, with that, guys, I'm Jeff Fuller from Fuller Embroidery Works. That is Justin Armento from JA Digitizing Studios, both here representing the Embroidery Nerd, and we will catch you guys next week.